I was just going to start the meeting off by saying, first of all, thank everyone for being here, but just wanted to put in a few guidelines and a few, I guess, ground rules, if we must say. We don't want this to turn into anything political or any kind of rant or beat up or nothing like that. If you don't know, Pastor, I work as a reserve deputy with Sheriff Tracy Carter. I know his heart. I've been knowing his family. We just talked about that for 20 some years. And so I know where he stands with the people. And I know a lot of people have had questions why, some people ask me why your sheriff had said this and said that. And my response is, ask him. He has an open door policy. He doesn't hide from anyone. You know where the office is at. Then on top of that, he does care about the community. So we just want to make sure that this is going to be a simple question and answer session. You guys may have some questions that are pretty heavy, but he's not going to shy away from them. I know him personally. He's not going to shy away from them. And just make sure this is not just a beat up, just to ask questions and get clarity on that. Is everyone cool with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. So before we begin, let me go into a word of prayer before we can go. All hearts are clear. Dear God, Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you, God, for this meeting. We thank you, Lord, for the minds that are assembled here today. Lord, as we talk, Father God, and discuss, Lord, things that are going on with Lee County, we ask, God, that you give us clarity, that you give us peace. And Lord, after this meeting, we ask, God, that we come out of it with an understanding of how our leaders are going to lead this county and lead this city. And Lord, we just ask right now, God, that you touch the hand of each and every man here, that you told us, God, that we have to pray for our leaders. So right now, God, we put our hands on Sheriff Carter because he is the leader of our county in law enforcement. And we ask, God, that you bless and guide him, that you bless and guide Pastor Sean and Pastor Reyes. In God, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And we've got Ms. Anya is trying to get in, so I'm letting her come on in too. Thank you, Ferguson, for setting the platform. I will also echo, I've known the sheriff for, God, it's got to be over 20 years now. And we've served, he served in Lee County, I served in Jones County. It's been a friend. I came to Lee County in 2007, where we just continued to work together. So I definitely will never attack the sheriff. I respect the office. I respect the man. But again, I'm like Walter, as a leader in our community, I do feel there is some questions that have been presented to me and some concerns that even as a leader that I have of the sheriff, that I wanted to give him a platform because we are leaders and we hear from different people. And I wanted to give him a platform that he can't touch everybody at one time, but at least that his voice can be heard. So Pastor Ray, if you talk a little bit about you, and then we'll get to, and Yana will speak, and then we'll get right into it.
Great. Well, I'm the new kid in the block. My wife and I and our children, we moved here to North Carolina, Sanford, back in 2009. So I'm still learning the community. I'm a pastor here. I have worked here in Lee County also as a social worker in the investigation unit. So I'm learning. Actually work very closely with the Latino population and learning how things flow. I have seen a lot of changes since I got here, and that's what we're looking for, those positive changes to continue that trend. And I think we're heading in a good direction as we come together and just talk about the concerns that our citizens have. And I'm going to close with this. What I did is we have quite a few college students in our church, 18, 19, 20. And I said to them, hey, listen, guys, I'm going to be in a conference call with the sheriff and some other friends. What are your questions? What do you guys want to know? So I wrote some questions that they had because I want to make sure that what I bring forth is not what I think, but how our youth population is seeing how our county is working, which is extremely important to me. So the question that I'm going to be posting at Sheriff will be the questions that our youth would like some answers to, and hopefully we can work through that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Anya, you on?
Hey, yes, I'm on. I'm sorry. I'm actually on the road. I had some things going on recently, and so I kind of jumped in on this conference just to kind of guess, for me more so to get insight on just kind of where Sheriff Carter is as far as the community and just kind of see what's going on. I don't really have many questions for him other than outside of training and what kind of training are his officers doing as far as kind of to prevent certain things happening in the community between the community and police brutality, that type of thing. And I know they're not as active as the actual police department as far as stops and stuff, because they do a lot of warrants. But I know we have a huge mental health population in Sanford, as well as homeless population. And I found doing hospital transition work with that community that a lot of the police officers and sheriffs does not have a lot of training with the individuals, especially the mental health population, and it begins to become a conflict between them two because they don't understand each other. More so, the police officers are not understanding the individual's mental illnesses. And so that's just a major concern for me as far as community, because I'm really connected with the mental health population.
Thank you. So Sheriff, again, I want to say thank you and thank all of you that are on. They were all pretty much handpicked, so we could kind of be professional in our conversation, and I just think it's important that we address you as a professional, which you are, sir. And so with that being said, I'd just like to open up, Sheriff. One of the concerns, and I think Ayanna, and this is from me, is I've known your heart, I've known you, but during this whole episode over the last couple months, especially since George Floyd murder, I haven't heard anything from you, sir, in reference to your stance. Where does the department stand, even with our protests that have taken place in our city? So could you just start from there, and you have the floor, sir.
Well, you know, I'm like everyone else that I know. When this terrible incident happened, I was shocked. I was, you know, it was just a terrible thing. I mean, you know, law enforcement 101, and I know you guys, Walter and you, Sean, can relate to this. When you get somebody cuffed, you get them up off the ground and you take care of them, you know, and the force stops. So for this cop to have him handcuffed on the ground, you know, and that in itself, if you leave somebody, Mr. Floyd, from what I've seen, was a you know, had a big frame, gentleman, and if you leave somebody like that on the ground, they could suffocate just from that itself in time, you know. So, but you know, the whole thing was just, it was a terrible incident. He was a bad cop that committed murder, and I've always preached to my staff, you treat people the way you want to be treated. And you know, we have our basic law enforcement training we go through, and then we have in-service training. And as time moves forward, I hope that we can get more training on de-escalation. I think the more you can give of that, the better. So you know, I'm totally against any kind of course, brutality, or anybody that knows me know that I am, and know that that's my stance on that. You know, we as law enforcement leaders have to work to weed those bad people out. And unfortunately, sometimes you're going to have bad people that's going to show up in law enforcement and do bad things. So, you know, we've got to get those individuals out when we detect that. As far as the protesting, you know, we've had several here in our city, and they've been peaceful. And I'm all for people protesting and demonstrating, and I just want people to be safe. You know, we were out here. We had courthouse. We were out here with them. We wasn't out there to harass them. We were out there to protect them, and we let them protest and do their thing. And I was very impressed with, you know, with the fact they didn't. Nothing went bad, and they even picked up their trash when they left. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at with, you know, with the protesting. I mean, I believe in that. I think people have a right to do that. They do have a right to do that. You know, we're not going to try to put a stop to that. And you know, I would just say to them, if you do have one, and we're there to protect you. We're not there to harass you or anything like that.
That's right.
You know, and I think it's tough in organizations. I mean, you want your officers to act right in the community and do the right thing. You have to do that. And we have worked hard from day one to get in the community as much as we can. I mean, we do hundreds of community policing events every year. This COVID-19 has slowed that down for obvious reasons, but we're out in the community continuously. I mean, for the past probably week and a half, we've been fed by the community. We've had different organizations that's come in, and I think that's an example of the good relationship we have with the people that we serve. I mean, we're not here to rule over people. We're here to serve people. And I was talking to my staff a couple of weeks ago, and I said, we're not the military. We're peacekeepers. And that's our role in the community is to keep peace.
Pastor Ray.
Yes, thank you so much, Sheriff. And that's going to bring me right into the question. Leah, our 20-year-old college student, she's actually studying political science, and he sent me a question which is going to go right into what you just said, and let me just read it to you. If a peaceful protest were to turn non-peaceful, what would you do differently to handle the situation versus how other cities have handled it?
Well, again, let me stress, I think that you have to allow people to protest and to demonstrate. That's their right. But, my philosophy would be, if people start to break the law, let me say this, I think that in the majority of protests that I've seen and that I know about, you have good people that are there to have their voices heard. And then you have bad people that come in and hijack those events, a lot of them, and they start doing things to hurt the cause of the protest. So my philosophy, my game plan would be to put a stop to it as quickly as possible. We don't want anybody hurt. We don't want to violate anybody's rights, but I think you have to intervene and deal with it, when it occurs, because if you let it get out of hand, and that's when people get hurt, businesses get tore up, and bad things happen. So, that would be my game plan with that.
And a follow-up question to that, how prepared are you guys to deal with the circumstances like this, where it goes violent, and then we start seeing things that I wish we'd never experienced here in our county? But how prepared are you guys? I know, I have worked very closely with many of the officers from Sanford PD and also from the sheriff, just by working with DSS. But how prepared are you guys to deal with this and make sure that it's safe for everyone and across the board also for our citizens?
Well, let me say this. This is new territory for all of us. And we're all in this together. And I would say that to the people that I serve, my citizens. And so we're learning new things. I think currently we're in decent shape to handle it, but we can get better. We need to do more. We need to get more training in this area, and we're going to be looking at that. So that's a good question. Again, I think we're in decent shape. We've done some things to equipment wise with our officers, but you can always do better. So we're making notes, and we're going to try to get to get better prepared in the future. And I hope that I think that the fact that we've had demonstrations here in Sanford that have been demonstrations peaceful, I think that's a reflection of our community, and I think it's a reflection of the relationship that we have with the community. I mean, I don't remember. I was asking my administrative captain that handled all my complaints. I said, when was the last time we had a use of force complaint? And he said, I don't remember. So, I mean, we don't have, thank God, we don't have those issues here in this community. And I think that, a lot of it is the fact that my staff knows that I believe in treating people fairly and treating people the way you want to be treated, and also the kind of officers that you hire. Now, I've had some officers that have worked for me that didn't need to be in law enforcement, and they're not in law enforcement anymore. But, you know, we as leaders have to, you know, to do those backgrounds and try to hire the best we can. And we're, you know, and speaking of that, we're running short right now of folks wanting to get in law enforcement, which is really sad. I would say to parents and to young people, consider talking to your kids about law enforcement as a career path. It's a great way to serve your community. There's a lot of opportunities in law enforcement that are out there, and we need good candidates. And right now, fortunately, we're running short on that. And I think that a lot of that has to do with some of the things that's going on across the country. Even with issues here, it's still hurting our recruitment.
I'm so glad to hear when you said that, you know, you have had individuals that don't need to be in law enforcement. That kind of shows me that you actually are looking for what's in the best interest of our community and not blind to the things that can affect one's ability to win or the trust of the community and work with people of different color. You know, I'm Latino, I'm brown, and being able to work, you know, with different culture and different languages and things like that, extremely important to be able to have the confidence of our community. So thank you for saying that. I am quite glad to hear that. That shows me, you know, how you see things.
Let me back up a minute if I can and go back to when I first got elected. And I'm not. This is not a negative statement against anyone. It's just, I just want to tell you where we're at and where we're at now. I had one African American sworn deputy when I first took office, and now we've got numerous African American Black officers that work for me. Quite a few of those are in leadership positions. We had no female officers. I probably have a half a dozen female officers working for me, and some of those are in leadership positions. I had no Latino officers working for me. I've got, I know I have 3 that are out on patrol right now that are Latino officers that are working for me. I have some in the jail. So, you know, on our application, it says minorities and women are encouraged to apply. So we're trying to work on getting my office to where it reflects the community. We're not where we need to be. And part of that is because I think that I wish more minorities would choose law enforcement as a career path, because it would help in those, you know, in what we're trying to accomplish. But we've come a long ways, and we're going to continue to improve on that and try to recruit good people to come and work for us.
So Sheriff, if I may follow up, and I'll get to you, Walter. In hearing what you're saying and the diversity that you have in your department, how much diversity training do you do, knowing that our community has such a variety of cultures, and then even leading into Anyana's statement about our mental health issues? So how much training do you do and spend time with through your training department to make sure our officers are equipped to deal with the different cultures and the mental health issues that we see?
We have in-service training that we do each year, and we can select different topics. Some of it is mandated. It has to be like, you know, you got to have firearms, use of force training. But we do have minority sensitive training that our officers take. We're going to be looking at more of that. We try to always send officers to the critical incident training program that's here. That's very good. It's a lot about de-escalation and handling mentally unstable people. Of course, they get it in their BLET program, but I think you're going to see more of that kind of training. I just sent one of my captains, or I'm in the process of sending one of my captains to a program called Impartial Policing, train the trainer. And once he gets that, he's going to come back and train our staff. And it's all about de-escalation, working with people, The Sheriff's Association is also putting together a committee of sheriffs across the state. It's going to be meeting in different regions and talking about these very things. We're looking at ways of improving. The only challenge, well, the one challenge that the biggest challenge in training is the money that it costs. I mean, because if you send somebody away for a week and you got somebody that's gone, but we're gonna make it work. We're gonna try to do a lot of in-house training, like I was talking about, getting my captain trained up, come back and train our staff here. But you're gonna see some good things that will come of this for law enforcement, because I think that a lot of agencies, I know mine is, my agency, my office is looking at better training for our staff as time moves forward. You have to in this business, and I know that Walter and Sean can relate to this. You can't sit still. You have to keep moving. You have to keep looking at different things and better ways of serving the community and making your officers better. So, we're going to continue to do that. We have to.
Walter?
Yeah, well, Sheriff, I think I already know the answer to this question, but like I said, I've had people ask me this, and I just want you to just tell the people. A lot of people are asking me, why aren't you guys enforcing the mandatory mask requirement set by the governor? And I explained to some of them, I said, it's not only, I think people think just because we're here in Lee County, they don't go elsewhere. I said, a lot of the sheriffs aren't enforcing that. And I said, it's up to him to enforce, it's up to the sheriff to put this down. I said, if you want to know, just ask them. So, but a lot of people are asking, why they're not doing it. And I told him, I said, ask the sheriff. I said, but he's not the only sheriff that's not doing that right now.
Well, I appreciate you asking me that, Walter. I figured that would come up. First of all, you can't enforce it on an individual. In other words, if Sean and I were in a store together and he didn't have it on, I legally couldn't cite him. You can cite a store if they're not complying, but here's a couple things. I think this is the worst time for me to be moving around in the county trying to force this on businesses because of all the problems that we're having with with police relationships with the community. And I just don't think it's a good time for me to be doing that, playing that role. And secondly, our businesses, I went to 3 big businesses today. I won't say where they were at, but I went to 3 of them, and I observed and looked around. Everybody had masks on. Everybody in the store had masks on. All the workers had masks on. So I think that our businesses and our people here are going to do just like they've been doing. They're going to wash their hands. They're going to stay 6 feet apart. They're going to use masks. And I had a video conference with our governor a while back, and with some other sheriffs, and he said, listen, every community is different. We want you to use your discretion. So that's what I'm doing. I'm using my discretion. I don't think it's the right role for me to be policing businesses. And quite frankly, I don't have the manpower. I mean, I don't. But I just don't think that's the role that I need to be playing. And I think that our citizens are complying, and they will comply as time moves forward. And I do the best I can. Sometimes I may not make the right decision, but I have to do what I feel is right in my heart. So,
right, and that just goes by what you just said. I said it earlier. I know your heart. Sean knows your heart. I'm not sure how the other guys do, but we know your heart, and that's why I'm glad you said that, so we could clear that up. And if this is shared, people can hear what you just said, because right now you said 2 things critical. There's a shortage of manpower because we're not having a lot of minorities want to enter into the law enforcement field, which I think is sad, because I'm not a full-time law enforcement officer, but it is rewarding when you do it. I think when I was in BLET, the one thing that we learned, they said, if you do this job the best of your ability and always treat people right, it'll be the most rewarding thing in your life.
Absolutely.
And you just said that. I know Sean can echo that, but I think it's sad that we don't have enough minorities into it. But that being said, are there any kind of programs or any kind of incentives to bring minorities in? Is it going to be any kind of like minority recruiting or for Latinos and the blacks or whoever?
Well, I try to recruit anytime I go out to speak to a group or whatever. I'm recruiting right now, so we'll hear this and we'll encourage their children. You know, I just hired a young Spanish young man a couple of days ago. He's certified in law enforcement. We're going to start him out in jail. He's going to work there for a while, and we'll put him out on the road. But we're recruiting all the time. As far as actual programs to recruit minorities, that's a good idea. I mean, maybe the community college could come up with something like that to recruit minorities for their basic law enforcement training program, which we have a really good BLET program here in Sanford. That would be a good idea. Maybe you should suggest something, to them about that. And I'll make mention of that as well. That would be a good idea.
Okay.
And again, we have a good relationship with the community, and we don't have enforcement issues. I mean, use of force issues, and we worked really hard over the past 13 years to build that relationship. And again, I think that's part of the reason that we are where we're at in our community, because we got a great community. I mean, we do. Any community you go into, you're going to have some, bad people that do bad stuff. But the majority of citizens here in every community are good. I'm proud of the citizens that I serve. I say my citizens that I serve.
And Sheriff, I want to hit two things with my question. One is, I know there's a clear line between the county and the city. And a lot of times you have your city police and the sheriff's department and the agencies. Pastor Ray alluded to earlier, if something was to happen, is there a mutual aid or some joint training that has taken place between the two agencies? Because the real fact of the matter is, if something goes bad in Lee County, it's going to take all of the agencies working together to make it to squash it. So how much interaction? I know when I first came to Sanford, we worked on some things to try to make those better. Has that improved? And is there some cohesiveness between the two agencies?
Absolutely. We're in constant contact with Chief of Police and Major Thomas and their staff. We work very closely with them. The sheriff's office has jurisdiction in the city. We do have a mutual aid agreement. There are times when the city comes out in the county to assist us, and we are the same. So, and as time moves forward, I think you're going to see more of that. As far as training, they get a lot of the same training we do. We don't do any joint training. There may be some times when we do some things together through the community college, but I think you'll see that improving. That's another good idea, for us to do some actual training together. But we have a very good working relationship with the police department, the highway patrol, Broadway, the Broadway officers. All the Broadway officers are actually sworn deputy sheriffs as well, because sometimes they're short staffed at night, and we do a lot to help them, and they do a lot to help us. If we get a call out in the county late at night, they can actually go and meet, if it's close to Broadway, and meet our officers there. So, but yeah, we have a good working relationship with all law enforcement here. And I also have a lot of folks don't know this, but I actually have 2 SBI agents that are housed in my office. The state has provided those because of the relationship that we have with them. So, but yeah, you have to work with people when you do what I do. You can't do it by yourself. You have to.
And then, so that was the lead into the second question. Across the state, I know many mayors across the state have come out and even at the federal level with the Justice Act and a reform with law enforcement. What is your stance with the no chokehold, the no knock. Well, no chokeholds, the no knock, and I think I know your answer on some of these, Sheriff, but I think it's good. The no knock and the advisory panels that suggesting that law enforcement have. What has been your take as looking at those things?
You know, I've never supported any kind of chokeholds. We've never had those here. We've never had that in our policy, so I'm totally against that. The other things I'm against as well. I mean, but I think like the no knock, there may be some exceptions to that. If you have a child that's been abducted and you feel like you know where that child's at, under emergency circumstances, there may be some exceptions to it, but it should never be used to harass or abuse anyone, and it should be documented if you do use that. So, I mean, you just have to be careful. If you do that, you have to be able to justify it. So I definitely, think there needs to be restrictions there.
That's rare. Anya, I don't want to leave you out, young lady. You got a voice, so do you have anything? I don't want to leave you out.
Yeah, I'm just listening. I'm just taking note.
Okay.
But I did have a quick question. He answered your question in reference to the training. Is there anything as citizens? I know there's funding for different things that can be allotted to different areas for different reasons. So, is there anything as citizens that we can do to probably help our sheriff department get more money for funding for these trainings that we may be lacking?
You asked.
Because I mean, I know like everybody talks about the census, and a lot of people are kind of leery about the census, and that can bring more money to our area for different resources. But is there any other resources that we can probably, push as citizens to help our sheriff department get more funding for training?
Well, I tell you, thank you for asking that. Let me tell you who's been, and he may get on to me about this, but if he does, he just does. But I'll tell you somebody that's been a huge supporter of law enforcement in the county and the city, and has done a lot. He's been one of my best allies to get things done, because we've come a long ways at the sheriff's office. But that's Robert Reed, Commissioner Robert Reed, and he's done a lot to help our staff here. And we have an SRO in every school. And the board, our county commissioners, from the ones that were there when I first took office, and it changed some. Robert's been there the whole time, but it has changed some. And to the current board, they've always supported my office and public safety. I mean, that's never been sometimes it's you got Democrats and Republicans there, but that's one thing that they've always all supported was public safety. So, we're in good shape. I feel like right now my office is. They just passed a better pay plan for my office that Robert was a big supporter of, and the county, the county commissioners as a whole supported it, and that's going to help long term in terms of recruiting, because it's going to allow us to compete better with some of the agencies in Wake County that pay more. So Walter, you might want to think about that. We'll still let you do your financial stuff or whatever it is you do on the side. But anyway, we're in good shape, and if I need something, the county manager's always good to listen, and John's been, I've got a good working relationship with him, and that's really what it's one of the main things that is important when you're in a position like I'm in. But in any kind of business, you have to work with people. You have to establish relationships with folks, and I would say to young people that may listen to this, learning how to get along with people and having good relationships. And when you go to work somewhere, if you're a team player and you maybe do a little extra and just have a good attitude, that is gold in the workplace. I would rather have somebody working for me that's got the, that's basic, but has a good, is willing to learn and work with the community and treat people fairly, than somebody with a, law degree that's not willing to listen, learn, and, participate.
That's right. I know you got a burning question, Pastor Ray.
Yes. I have one question that is, I know we won't be able to cover all the issues, but in the Latino community, in the Brown community, it's still very vivid. And that question would bring us back to the ICE raid of 2019. But before I ask a specific question, I want to ask a general question and then go from there. I know, Sheriff, you're familiar with the 287G program, which is deputizes or police officers and sheriff as ICE agent. I am quite clear that Lee County, we don't participate on the 287G program, which I'm glad, and let's keep it that way. We don't need our law enforcement to be ICE agent in any way. But my general question would be, because I know to a certain level, we are a 287G, we collaborate to a certain level. So let me throw that general question. Up to what level is Lee County, the Sheriff's Office, collaborating with the 287G program, which is mainly targeted, and I'm not just going to use the Latino, but I'll use the immigrant population. And I'm listening, sir.
Good question. I thank you for answering that. We don't participate in the 287G program, but we do participate in a program, and it started in 07, and I believe it's called Secured Communities. But what that is anyone that's processed through our jail, whether they're white, black, Latino, they're fingerprinted, and it does interface with immigration. So there is a possibility that someone gets arrested for serious crime, assault, dealing drugs, possibly DWI, domestic assault, and they're here illegally. They could be deported. So we do honor ICE detainers, but that doesn't happen that often. There are people that do get deported from our jail, but I do cooperate and with ICE to that level. But let me say something. Let me throw something out there that I'd like everybody to think about. If I did not cooperate with ICE, then you would have ICE agents showing up in communities unannounced, without our knowledge, and it would cause a lot of fear. We're talking about individuals that commit crimes, serious crimes, and get arrested, and they're not always deported. There are undocumented people that get processed through our jail that ICE doesn't come and get, but sometimes they do. But with us working with ICE, it keeps it's better for the community as a whole, because that's the only place they deport at. Now, the incident that happened last year at the plant, there was extenuating circumstances there. It was basically an identity theft investigation. It wasn't a ICE raid where they're just showing up at a business to try to round up people. There was people there that were undocumented that they didn't bother. That investigation was about identity theft, and there was a lot of misinformation that got out in the community about it. But that's what drove the ICE to show up and do that.
And I understand, the complexity of the 287G program and the secured community, especially, that is one of the, which is a dilemma. Let me put it this way. Even when I'm speaking with others, to what degree do we collaborate or participate? Because, what do we prefer? Do we prefer ICE agent running rampage in our community? or or collaborate to a certain degree. I think that the concerns comes in not understanding this and how complex this issue is. Because what I'm finding in our community is that many of the immigrant population are afraid to call law enforcement because they believe, for just reasons, that if they end up in the jailhouse, I believe there's and correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's like a 24-hour period where they must be bond out before immigration is informed. Exactly what is the time period? And then I get back to the issue with the arsenal. What is the time period from a person getting arrested into the local jail and sending out the information or the notice to immigration? What is the time period? What are we talking about?
Roughly, it depends. Sometimes back quickly, sometimes it may take 24 hours, but I would say within a 24-hour period. But let me say a couple things. No one should fear calling law enforcement here in the county. If you get assaulted, if you need our help, you should call. We don't show up and ask for, we don't ask information, are you here, illegally or not, from victims. We don't do that. And I would say to the Latino community, look at our record here in the community. I've been sheriff for 12 years. How do you feel about the relationship with my office? I think they would have to say it's decent because we don't have any issues in those. We don't go out and round up people. If people get arrested, if you commit, a violent crime, a serious crime, and you get arrested and you're here illegally, well, you may get deported. But we don't go out in the community and do raids like that. And I tell you, it's helped, in my opinion, just my perspective. I think it helped the community in a lot of ways. It's helped keep the community safer. But that I guess that's my position on that, is to judge what we've done and look at the relationship we have in the community. But again, if you're a victim, if you need us, you need to call, because we're not going to go there with you.
So I'm glad to hear that. So what you're saying to me is, and we'll be posting this on our Facebook page and our YouTube page for the church. What I'm hearing from you is, if the Brown community needs assistance from law enforcement, what I'm hearing from you is that the question are, if you're legal here, do you have a visa or do you have a passport? That question will not be asked. That's what I'm hearing.
We don't get into that. If you call to report a crime, we're going to come. We're going to take the report, and we're going to do what we can to help. So if you're in a relationship with someone and you get assaulted, you call us. We're going to help you. We're going to come out. We're going to take the report. We're going to help you. That does come up in our in dealing with victims.
And just one more question, and which is related to this, and let's go back to the event of 2019. When I heard what was taking place, I myself drove over to the Arsenal, and I think my disappointment came in, and I knew you guys were there. I knew you guys were present at the facility, and as you had indicated before, for safety reasons, to make sure that everything went well. But where my disappointment came from is, when I got there, I saw one of our local Lee County Sheriff's Office blocking the driveway. We need some answers to that. How come, a local Lee County Sheriff's Office was blocking the driveway for no one to come in and for no one to get out?
Well, anytime you do any, if you're assisting another agency, they have a warrant to go in and search. You have to secure this perimeter. That's just protocol. And again, that was a situation where it was driven by identity theft. It wasn't a random, showing up to try to, round up a bunch of people. They were there conducting an identity theft investigation. It ran very deep, but that's just protocol for us. It's to secure the scene, and that's just the way we operate. And I understand how some people don't understand that. Sometimes we do things that people don't understand, but that's the reason that we have to do that in operations like that. We have to.
And I'm glad we're having this conversation because there's a lot of question and a lot of doubt between the Brown community and a local sheriff's office, and especially with so many things that are happening. And I close with this. I know we have come a long way. I'm from up north. I'm from New York, and then my wife and I, we lived in Florida for many years. But when I arrived here to Lee County back in 2009, I think it was at the end of 2009, there was a small incident that I had with another vehicle, and a law enforcement officer showed up. Not to bring that back, but kind of show how much we have progressed. A law enforcement officer showed up, and instead of asking me what had happened, the first question he asked me is, "Do you have any papers?" Of course, I didn't answer that question, but then he proceeded to tell me, to park my vehicle, and actually didn't say a word to me, but where's your driver license and where's your insurance card, and went to the other individual, which is non-Brown, and spoke with that person for about 45 minutes, never asked me what happened, never asked me if I was okay, basically says, "You at fault, here's your ticket, you can go." I'm not seeing that, or I have not heard that that's been happening over and over. So I know we have come a long way. And my question to end this is, working in the community and driving through the community for so many years, I have noticed that sometimes on neighborhoods or targeted neighborhoods, there seems to be more driver license check and insurance check than in other part of town. Like in the part of town that I live in, there's never that. All the years that I have lived here, we never have had that. But in lower, in other parts of Sanford, I'm seeing more. I have seen that quite often. Any input as to that?
Well, let me, Pastor, you're working me over today, man.
Well, these are concerns and questions that my people have, so I wanted to bring it to you since we already in the conversation.
You're good. You're covering some good. You're asking some good questions. As to let me say this to any citizen that's out there: if you have an interaction with law enforcement and you feel like that you've been done wrong or harassed or whatever, we have a complaint system here that works very well. You come down, fill out the complaint, we investigate it, we get back with you, we look into those things. And it's important for people to do that, because if you got a bad officer and they're bothering people, then we need to get that documented. Because if we start getting complaints, consistent complaints on an officer, that's a flag that they're probably doing something wrong. So, so I would encourage citizens, if you feel like that you've been wrong, come down and complain and fill out a complaint. We're going to look into it. And I would say to young people, don't comply with the officer. If the officer pulls you over, comply with the officer. Don't get into a verbal argument. Definitely don't get into a physical altercation with the officer. And then if you feel like that your rights were violated, then you go with your parents, file a complaint. I mean, you can even hire an attorney and take civil action if you feel like you've been wrong. But don't get into a physical confrontation with an officer or verbal, because nothing good's going to come out of that. And, we want to try to avoid that at all costs. As far as the check-in stations, We don't do checking stations in the city. We do them in the county. We do them in rural areas, different parts of the county, and criminals come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And there are criminals that are floating into communities, all the time, looking for easy opportunities to steal or whatever. So if you see something in your community that looks suspicious, doesn't look right, don't hesitate to call us, because we're here to serve, and we want to try to keep our property crimes and crime in general down. So we need our citizens to help us out by calling us if they see things that's not not right. So
Thank you so much.
in other words, I'm telling you, we don't target any specific area, because most people are good. I believe that, but you subject to having bad people show up anywhere, and I'm careful when I talk about our communities. We're all in this together. I've had things happen in the neighborhood I live in. I mean, crime is subject to happen anywhere. Is what I'm getting with what I'm trying to say. It doesn't just happen in certain areas. I mean, it's subject to happen anywhere. So again, give us a call if you see something that's not right. If you need to talk to me, anybody can get my cell number. You can call down here and get it. I'll say it right now. It's 919-842-0019. 919-842-0019. If you want to talk to me, give me a call.
You might start getting a lot of calls.
Sure.
Right here, that keeps me very busy. But it's just part of it's part of the gig. It's part of what I do. When you're sheriff, you're sheriff. Walter asked me earlier about if I was running now, because he saw me walking around the courthouse, and I told him, I said, no, I'm too old to run, but I do walk. But and sometimes people will pull up and say, hey, why ain't you working, sheriff, or whatever? But when you're sheriff, you're on duty 24/7. I mean, you're never, I get phone calls sometimes on the weekend, and people say, oh, I hate to bother you on the weekend. I'm like, look, I'm your sheriff. It's your life. You're there, you're on call all the time. So I don't mind getting calls.
Well, Sheriff Carter, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions and the questions that our young people in the Bronx community have. I appreciate that, and hopefully, with this being out, many of them will hear what you have to say. So I appreciate each one of you. You have a good team there. I have worked hand in hand with your team out there. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate what you do, Pastor. Keep us in your prayers.
Sure will. Thank you.
Hey, Sheriff, I'm going to kind of end my set of questions is dealing with health issues, especially with your jail population. COVID is very real, and I've told everybody this is not a political football. COVID is real. What has been the impact for the people that you have that's in your system for the protection and to help make sure that the COVID virus is not spreading?
We have a full-time nurse that works in our jail, and she's on call. When I first took office, we had, and of course I worked in the jail many years ago, and we had to do, there was a time when you had jail staff doing medical stuff. I mean, we had to, giving out medication, and so we've gotten totally away from that. We have a full-time nurse. The system works really well. We contract with Southern Health Partners, and they do a good job for us. Anytime we have an inmate in our jail, we're responsible for it, and we have to make sure they're taken care of. They have medical needs, and so we work on that. We were working on that before COVID, but now that we have this issue, we've had to shut down people coming into the jail. I have ministers that come in at normal times and minister on the weekends, and we had to stop that. And of course, we we had to stop visitation. And we screen everyone that comes in and out of jail. My jail staff they've done a tremendous job at keeping the jail safe. We've got our numbers down. We average around 100 inmates, and our capacity is around 128. So we're keeping our numbers down. That makes it easier on the inmates and my staff. And we're, so far, and I don't want to say something to mess this up. So far, we have not had any of our inmates with COVID. If we get someone in that we think might have it or might have been exposed, and we work with the judicial officials to get them bonded out, and our court system has done a really good job working with us, our magistrates, in getting people out. So it's a constant daily thing, but we do take it very serious. And so far we have, and I've had one staff member in the jail that got COVID, but we because of our screening process, and they started feeling bad, they called their supervisor, and the supervisor told them to stay home, and then they were quarantined, and we tested anyone we thought came in contact with them, and so we got through that without it spreading into the jail and to any other staff members. So again, Sean, we're all in this together, and we're all learning. This is the first time we've ever had to deal with this. I've dealt with hurricanes, tornadoes, really bad crimes at times. Never thought I'd be dealing with a pandemic.
Right.
But we're getting through it. We're learning, and we're making notes, but we do take that very serious.
Again, Sheriff, I want to thank you. I'm going to let Walter close us out, but I do want to thank you. I can say anytime I've called you, Sheriff, you've never backed down. You've always been there, and we've had many one-on-ones, and you've just been a friend down through the years. I appreciate your friendship. Also appreciate your leadership, and not being afraid to, as I like to say, sometimes get on the hot seat, but deal with the issues and be upfront and truthful. So again, I want to thank you for your time, Sheriff, and I appreciate all that you do, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. I echo that back to you, Sean, and I appreciate your service to our country and your law enforcement work and the work you're doing in the ministry. Y'all are first responders as well, so thank you.
Well, I guess all hearts and minds are clear. Everyone has heard what the sheriff has to say. And like I said at the beginning of this, man has an open door. He just gave out a cell phone number. So you have a cell number, and he answered the questions that the Latino community had through Pastor Ray, and some questions that the African-American community had through myself and Pastor Sean Williams. So as we can see, the sheriff is working hard for Lee County. He's working hard to make this a better county. And again, you guys, it is a shortage of African-American and Latino officers, and they are recruiting. So the sheriff just said he's recruiting now. So if you know someone that's a viable candidate, please contact the sheriff's department. They can show them how to get through BLET. You can contact myself, Pastor Sean, or you can call Sheriff Carter directly on his cell phone. He gave his number out. So I don't have anything else to say, but Sheriff, thank you again. Thank you for being a good leader, a good friend. I know your parents. I know how you were raised. So you're coming from the heart, and I appreciate it. Thank all you guys, and that's basically all I have to say.
Well, I'll say one thing. You mentioned my parents. My mom told me when I got elected, she said, "You might be the sheriff, but I'm still your mama." So we need people like that in our lives, man.
Yes, sir, buddy. Yes, sir. You're right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Sean, for putting this together.
You're welcome, and thank you, and thank the panel, and everybody have a wonderful day, and be safe over the fall.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one. Yeah.